Okay, let's see, I'm in the spotlight. Good morning, everybody. Let me just make sure. Let's see if I am live on Facebook. I think I am. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this works. All of you who are on Facebook, feel free to also join us live if you want to actually be in the Zoom room with us. There's a registration link all over the Facebook page. I'm sure you can find it, and feel free to join us live. Otherwise, I want to welcome you to the Global Turn On Salon and just say welcome, good morning. And I'm showing up fresh. I did shower, but no makeup, because guess what? We don't need it. Let's just give ourselves permission to just show up exactly the way that we are. And just to let you know, we are recording, but I'm going to put the spotlight on, so you guys will not be recorded, for you all who care about that. So I want to introduce Kelsey Lawford, who is a best friend. She is definitely my best friend and dear sister. And we actually got her to come out. She's an amazing teacher. She teaches yoga. She teaches somatic experiencing. She's a ecstatic dancer. She's a lot. She's got a lot of expertise in the body and energetics, and we got her to come out of, you're kind of in retirement right now because mama,
pretty much,
right?
yeah.
But what I love about you, Kelsey, is you're always down to just like jump in and help where you can. I think this is super important to talk about this topic, nervous system hygiene. And I'm super interested in what you're going to say. Just to let you all know, you can ask questions if you're in Facebook Live. I'm going to be checking the chat box. But also, if you have questions and you're on this video live, there's a little chat box, and you can go ahead and ask your questions in there, and we'll make sure we get them answered. So if you want to chat or you want to like respond to anything that Kelsey said, make sure you use the chat box. Okay? All right. I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, wait, I want to change it so I'm not looking at myself. There we go. Perfect. So thanks for having me. Yes, I'm very much jumping out of my extended maternity full-time mama mode to do this, it felt right. Feels good to do it here with you. So thank you. I wanted to talk about a lot of stuff around our nervous system, which is what I'm primarily trained in these days. And I'm a specialist in nervous system regulation through the somatic experiencing lens. And there's a lot going on right now. Somatic experiencing is all about unwinding stress and trauma from the body. And we're in this global pandemic, which is essentially a global level crisis or stress that we're experiencing. And there's lots of ways that we can navigate it. There's lots of ways that people are navigating it. And there's ways that we can support ourselves to feel a little less stress and a little bit more regulated in our nervous system, which ultimately is going to help boost our immune system, going to be able to help us make better choices for ourselves in how we are responding to this. And it'll help us be able to do things like this, like reach out, be together, support each other. And I came up with the term nervous system hygiene because the nervous system, similar to our bodies, which is where the nervous system resides, right? It needs daily tending. It needs sort of like its own hygiene routine or self-care routine to really feel supported. And we need to do this on a daily level or as best we can. Maybe some days we don't get to it, and that's totally normal and okay. But eventually the tools I'm giving you will help you be able to do it. If you do them often enough, they kind of just start happening versus it being something that you have to tend to. So when we look at the nervous system, it's really designed to be in a state of flow. And I'm not going to get into all the sciencey terms. There's tons of reading you can do that. You can reach out to me if you're into that kind of stuff. I'm definitely the kind of person that I love reading it, and then it kind of just dissolves into my into the background, because my brain isn't super wired for technical terms and things like that. So everything I'm talking about is scientifically backed, for those of you that really like that. And it's also being basically, the science that is coming out today is confirming all of the alternative healthcare methods that are very ancient, like Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine, shamanism. And the interesting thing about somatic experiencing is the founder studied a lot of those things. So it's a nice blending there. And so the way, our nervous system is wired for flow. And so before I get too much more into that, I want to start by doing an exercise. And we will do lots of exercises throughout the time we are together here, just to help start integrating what I'm talking about. So the first exercise I'm going to invite you to do is, it's called orienting. And animals do it, horses do it. I work a lot with horses, and that's why I love working with horses, is because they're already wired this way and help us to see where we can be more regulated. So basically, orienting is taking in your environment, your immediate environment. And so I'm going to invite you all, if you're doing an activity that you can't, if you're driving or you're managing something else, you can do it a little bit, but this activity is really good if you're in a more still place, or you can take a moment for yourself. So I'm just going to invite you to let your eyes flow and around your environment, and let your eyes guide you. Instead of thinking like, oh, I want to look over here, see where your eyes just go naturally and what your eyes get curious about. And allow your head and neck to follow your eyes. And start to notice if there's a more deeper, spontaneous breath that happens. Notice if something changes in your body, sensations arise or dissipate. And allow your eyes to then land on something that gives you a sense of pleasure. And notice what it is about that particular thing you're looking at that does give you pleasure. You can sort of name these things in your head. Is it a particular color? Is there a sensation or emotion that arises when you look at it? Does it hold meaning? Is there sentimental value there which helps you feel good? And just take a moment and allow yourself to really lean into those good feelings. Good. So whatever your eyes landed on is a resource. And a resource is something that can help be an intervention for you if you're feeling overwhelmed or really activated. And so during this time, especially as we do talk more about the nervous system and stress and trauma responses, if you are starting to feel a little bit activated, you can return to that resource that can be an anchor for you. And resourcing is also another great thing that you can do for yourself. I definitely recommend writing down a list of resources that you have for yourself during this time, so that if you're going down a rabbit hole of being online and you're feeling yourself getting activated and reaching a threshold or going beyond capacity, you can sort of reach for a resource and sort of pull yourself out of that. So what we know about the nervous system is it's not your ability to be able to be in the good feelings all the time that is regulating. It's the ability to flow between what I'm going to call is positive and negative. And just as you know, I like to say like a battery has a positive and negative end to it. Neither one is better or worse. They just are, and they sort of complete the whole. So, and they make the battery work. So the ability to be able to flow between positive and negative we'll say is things that are harder, more challenging, stressful, traumatizing. To be able to flow between the positive and the negative without getting stuck in one particular side is what creates resiliency and builds your capacity to be able to deal with or work through stressful situations. So what we see a lot of is that, especially depending on what you have maybe been through in the past, will determine how that is being regulated and how you are able to flow. So there's two types of situations where people are kind of stuck in the negative. It's really hard for them to pull themselves out of, the fight, flight, freeze, spawn responses, and they tend to almost feel at home there, and their lives are very much revolved around that. And then there's the other side of that where people are stuck in the positive, and we see that a lot in like the personal self-help kind of type area, where not that personal self-help is bad, and just like trauma isn't bad, but where people are almost bypassing the negative feelings and really just staying in that positive, good feeling. And both of those allow for more stress and trauma, or don't allow for us to be able to work through and deal with and help our nervous systems become more regulated. And our nervous systems are always seeking ways to become more regulated. So that is just a reminder that we are resilient. Our bodies are very resilient. Our beings are very resilient, and we are hardwired to be able to deal with anything that exists in this world. And I have a theory, and I've heard it from other people, that if it wasn't allowed to exist, it wouldn't be here. So whatever the earth and this experience we are experiencing as human beings exists because it's allowed to exist. And our bodies and what we're made for, we're actually designed to be able to deal and handle and work through whatever those experiences bring us. And so how do we do that? How do we create more flow? How do we, work with our nervous systems? One is definitely getting support from someone who is trained in trauma work or nervous system regulation. I don't think I would have been able to be where I'm at without it. And especially if you're someone like me who has a history of complex trauma, definitely getting support is number one. Trying to do this we're not meant to do this on our own. And the opposite that you hear a lot about, the opposite of trauma or stress or, addiction, is community. So reaching out for support, even friends who are a little bit more regulated. We have the ability to co-regulate with people. So people who, you have those people, I can't say that I'm like one of those people who is like always regulated all the time. I'm still working with a very dysregulated nervous system. It's way better than it was. But, you have those people in your life who are just seem to be like grounded, always have like a great outlook. A lot of the times for me, they're elders who have experienced a lot, who they just have that wisdom, and they always kind of bring you back, and they're not caught up in like the drama or the the cycles out there. So having those people in your life, what is essentially happening is our nervous systems are also designed to co-regulate. And this happens from birth. So when we're around those people that really support that for us, our nervous systems start regulating to that, because we're designed for that co-regulation. We're designed to feel in flow. And so that's a great place to start. And then integrating tools. So you now have the orienting tool that I gave you, and resourcing. Write a list of your resources. Some other things that we can do is sort of nurturing our body. So being more in our body. So body oiling, ritual baths, being out in nature and letting your body be in nature. And sort of the more we can tend to our bodies, because our nervous system lives in our body, the better that we can sort of support our nervous systems in this place. Is there any questions so far? I like to check in.
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So you're talking about like finding people that are grounded, like
yes,
that feel grounded now. And like, what do we do with that? Do we connect with them?
Right.
Do we like, how do we do that?
Right. So, you know, it's tricky because we don't want to get into like putting people up on the pedestal thing. Like even the most grounded people have their moments, right? So basically on a nervous system level, in the co-regulating thing, so that starts happening at birth. Babies' nervous systems aren't designed to know how to regulate from the beginning, in that they haven't learned how to yet. The blueprint is there, but we haven't learned how to do that yet. So, but what our nervous systems do is, if I'm with someone who is more grounded or more, let's say more regulated, their nervous system is more regulated. By being even in the same room with them, our nervous systems start picking up on that and start regulating with them. So it can even just be a conversation. I always joke with my mentor, my SE, somatic experiencing mentor, like as soon as I get on the phone with her, I can feel my nervous system start to shift into a more regulated place. So we don't actually have to do much. We could even just sit beside them and our nervous systems will start regulating, which I kind of like to put more emphasis on. Like, we don't have to do as much. We can just really, what we're doing right now with the orienting and the resourcing and being with grounded people is giving our nervous systems an opportunity. We're allowing space for it to do what it's designed to do. And so does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So it was great. I listened to this podcast this morning about the founder of SE sharing some of his take on what's happening in the world right now. And what I've seen also too a little bit from people that I follow is the terminology around physical distancing versus social distancing. It is very important for us to not be social distancing ourselves right now, which is so great that Leah Rose, you're doing this and you're creating all these opportunities to join with people. Because again, the co-regulation thing, being in community is so important right now. So yeah, physical distancing is what we need to do to keep ourselves safe, but social distancing is not. So what happens when we social distance ourselves, we don't have the ability to co-regulate, and we can also get caught up in the being stuck in those two things, right? We don't have as many reminders to break us out of that cycle. So when we're talking about tending to our nervous system, one of another really important thing to do, which is a little more challenging, is to be okay with feeling whatever is arising and being okay with whatever response we are having or reaction we're having, and then allowing ourselves to feel that without getting stuck in it. And so again, how do we do that? Because it's really easy for us to get stuck in those places, in the more sympathetic charge or the trauma responses or the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. While we're allowing ourselves to feel, because allowing ourselves to feel the fear or the grief or the panic or whatever it is very challenging and it's very uncomfortable. And depending on what has happened to us, we are going to be more prone to certain things or certain responses. So depending on our own unique nervous system makeup, which is from whatever we've been through previously, is what is determining how we are reacting or responding to this. So you see this in the way people are responding in general. So you have your fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. Fawn's one that's not really talked about, but I'm going to talk about it in a second. And those are healthy, natural, really good responses that your nervous system is doing. It is your survival response coming online and saying, this is not okay right now. I need to do something to protect myself. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And we need that. That's designed to keep us alive. What the hard part is when we get stuck there, kind of like what I was talking about before. So we kind of get stuck there, and then our nervous system is in a sympathetic place, which when we are in that sympathetic place or that charged place, certain things go offline, like your digestion goes offline and your heart rate increases. And so there's these things that basically our innate ability to heal is sort of put on the back burner so that we can get through this moment. And the sympathetic nervous system was not designed to be turned on for a long time, because what we know is when it's turned on for a very long time, it wreaks havoc in our body. As we know, stress is a huge, what gets disrupted when you're stressed? Yeah, so stress, as we know, is the number one cause of heart disease, digestive issues. So anyone who is in a primarily sympathetic place or dominant place for an extended period of time, I was one of those people. Things start happening, you'll more often than not, I don't know the exact numbers on it. Again, I have a hard time remembering those things, but you're going to have some sort of GI issues. So some sort of gastrointestinal issues. And quite often you'll see people have a lot of autoimmune. I have 2 autoimmunes and one other health challenge that I'm working with due to having a chronically stressed system. And yes, sleep definitely gets disrupted because the stress hormones start circulating through the body. So if you think about what the sympathetic nervous system was designed to do, it was to get you out of a situation that was stressful for a period of time. And so when we have these like elongated times of stress, like what's happening in the world right now, our nervous system doesn't get a chance to deregulate or discharge unless we give it the opportunity to. And it's really important too. So the responses that you might be feeling is, you might be feeling anger. Why isn't our healthcare system, why isn't our government, why aren't people doing this? Why aren't people doing that? And feeling really angry about that. That is a positive response to needing to feel protected. You might feel like you wanted to, the flee thing where like, I want to get out of here. I want to go, out into the woods. I want to go be with my family in this far off place. You want to, get in your van and start driving, or, that again is a healthy response. You might feel completely shut down and not know what to do and be like, I don't even know, that's what the shutdown is, when the nervous system hits its capacity in the more active place and just like shuts down. Again, totally healthy response, especially in this environment where the threat is invisible, right? This virus it's invisible, yet it's not on a microscopic level, but we can't see it, and a lot of us are, because we're in our homes, unless we have direct contact with someone who is experiencing it, it's this thing that's out there that we can't see or feel or touch. So freeze is a total normal response to this, for sure, where you might just wanting to be completely disassociating, and that disassociation is not a bad thing. Sometimes we need to do that, right? And then the fawning response is kind of like this. It's similar to freeze because it's a disassociation where you're basically disassociating from yourself, and you're taking care of everyone else and everything else before you're taking care of yourself. So it's kind of like the people pleasing, or, I'm going to, put my business online now and help the world. And yet you're not getting any sleep, and you're not eating, and you're not taking care of yourself, and you're stressing yourself out because you're focused on everything else outside of you, everyone else outside of you. Again, totally normal response. And this is all coming from a very good place. So what happens when the fear goes into our body and these responses get turned on, it registers in the body. And that's what we work with somatic experiencing, is we look at what the body is doing. So we are going to do another little exercise here. So just to repeat what we have the orienting, which is the looking around. We have the resourcing. We have being connected with someone who's grounded, or an exercise like yoga, or doing these group things online, keeping our connection, our social moving towards each other. And the next one is a really powerful one, because there is the largest nerve in the body is called the vagus nerve, which is getting a lot of attention these days. And if you haven't heard of it, it doesn't really matter. But basically, what they're seeing through the vagus nerve is that we almost have a second brain, and it's in our guts. And this is why the guts you get the gut feeling, or when you see a trauma or you feel stressed, you kind of feel it in your guts, right? They kind of get twisted up. You also kind of stop breathing, and there becomes this tension here. So the fear registers in the body, and then it gets tripped into the brain, does its thing, and you get tripped into your responses. And right now, because there's this sort of constant invisible threat, it's going to be harder for us to naturally flow into like, oh, there's something good happening in our lives. So we want to have these interventions. And the next intervention is, it's a sound, it's a making sound, and the sound is VOO. And what VOO does is it actually, if you do it, I'm going to show you how to do it. And when you do it, it registers in your guts. It registers in your belly. The vibration of it registers in your belly. And what that vibration does is it actually turns that signal off that's constantly firing in that stress place. And it helps your body feel on a nervous system level, as well as if some of you have done chanting or done singing, and that that singing, all the energetic benefits of singing as well. But what VOO does is the way it vibrates, just like different tones vibrate in different parts of the body, VOO really vibrates in the belly. Okay, I'll come back to this. Actually,
we have two questions from the Facebook audience. So do you want to do your VOO, and then we can come to questions?
Yes, let's do VOO, because I just gave a bunch of information so we can get back into our bodies. Yeah. Okay, so you can do this with me. You're all muted. So because it's not a resonance, like we're not trying to be in the same tone. You're literally just trying to make the sound so it vibrates in your belly. And the other key piece is when we're doing this, we really want to relax the jaw. So when we yawn or when our jaw is relaxed, the nervous system also helps itself. It's like a feedback loop to help the nervous system relax. So what we're going to do is we're going to voo together 3 times. And I'll do the first one and you can join in, and just let whatever sound comes out, come out. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be, it's not meant to be pretty. It's just meant to be a sound. So I invite you to find a spot where you can breathe easily and just take a nice deep breath. And on your next inhale, we're going to voo, and we're going to breathe all the air out through that sound. Relax the jaw. Go low as you can to feel the voo in your belly. One more time. Really feel the vibration. And just take a moment to notice your body. Notice any sensations or images or emotions that are arising. And if your eyes are closed, I like to close my eyes. I just close my eyes. I'm going to open them and just take a moment to do some orienting again. So looking around the space, letting your eyes get curious. Maybe landing on that one thing that brought pleasure to you. And just really, again, leaning into any pleasurable feelings that you're feeling, any feelings of openness, of space, of deactivation. Good. Okay. So which question do you want to start with, Leah Rose? Do you have them on?
So the 2 questions, one was from Olivia, one was from Naftali. I think let's start with the freeze mode since we just talked about that.
Okay.
So the question,
did you typed them into the chat?
Yeah.
Here? Oh, perfect. Okay, great. How do you recommend from an SE perspective of getting out of freeze mode? It feels like a disassociation to my body. My normal movement exercises do not always feel accessible. I'm not there now, but babe, he's there before a couple times.
I think maybe she was trying to say she's been there before a couple of times.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so freeze is the most challenging state to work with from a nervous system perspective, because you're absolutely right. There's disassociation. And basically your whole system says, I can't deal, I'm shutting down. And you see this with animals where their fight and their flight and maybe even their fawn didn't work, and now they're in freeze. And so in freeze, your movement, unless your nervous system is out of freeze, movement won't necessarily work for you because the underlying tone is freeze. So voo, what we just did, is a really helpful way to start that energy moving. And we actually, what we look for, if I were doing an SE session for you, I would actually try and look for a little bit of fight or flight to come on. So what happens is we're in this, it's like this big wave. So when we start our wave, we're in our rest, digest, social engagement place. The trauma or the stress comes in. the natural arc of that is to do fight, flight. That doesn't work. We hit freeze, which is usually when we've gone beyond our capacity or our threshold. And then ideally we come back down and we discharge. And ideally we're discharging before we get to that freeze place. So the fact that you're feeling that it's really hard for you to work with is completely normal. And freeze is super common, especially in our world, because we don't have like we're not being chased on the savannah, for instance, by a lion. There's not like these threats that are actually life threatening. Even though we're in that experience right now with this virus, it's also invisible. We can't see it. There's nothing coming towards us. So I just want to, if that eases you a little bit, that what you're feeling right now is normal and it's totally okay. So what you want to do is, what I would suggest for you is to kind of feel like when you feel a sense of healthy aggression come on, or any sort of like that, just even a little bit of it, I would lean into that a little bit and just see what happens. Booing's good. And movement is important for all of these things. And for right now, movement in the body is like dancing, shaking, anything, especially doing it with people, is really, really, really good for us right now, especially from a nervous system perspective. And so when you're in freeze, resourcing, so a resource that would maybe get you up and get you doing something. So if dancing, for instance, was a resource for you and you feel yourself in freeze, you would get up and go dance. And dancing doesn't have to be big, huge movements. It could literally be lying on the floor and just letting your body move and wiggle a little bit. So any sort of thing that brings a little bit of movement in. And again, leaning into those places where you feel a little bit of healthy aggression. And aggression's another, we could talk a whole hour around healthy aggression and why it's hard for us to be there as a culture. So those would be the two places that I would lean into for sure. And nature, walking outside, even in the rain, and just being in nature will be helpful, because nature is never in a state of freeze. So you can co-regulate with that, or co-regulating with someone who is has a sense of healthy aggression, who can kind of, your nervous system can be like, oh yeah, okay, it's good for me to be a little bit active here. Okay.
Awesome. And then let's move. Where's the vagus nerve located in the belly, upper or lower belly? I think that's a great question.
Yeah. So the vagus nerve is throughout the whole belly. So it's the nerve, it's the closest. So it's a branch of your nervous system that goes from the brain, and it sort of sits closest to your the front side of your body, but it's behind, right? It's behind all our vital organs, and it literally attaches to your lungs and your belly, and even down into the sacrum a little bit. And it attaches into the belly in a few different places. It's quite big. It's got lots going on. And if you look it up, you could anatomical position of vagus nerve. If you Googled that, I'm sure there would be a ton of great little charts for you.
Yeah, if this is the first time you're hearing about the vagus nerve, it's definitely something to go check out and study, because it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, the polyvagal theory is what I'm talking about a lot, and that's by Stephen Porges, and he has talks, his books are like, I can't even get through them, but his 1 hour talk is really, really good. Okay.
Awesome. And
suggestions on approaching conversations with roommates that trigger everyone's fear, fight, flight, or yeah. Okay. Well, that could be another whole hour conversation. It's tricky when you're dealing with other people's nervous systems that are triggered in their stress or trauma response. So if the nature of conversation itself is triggering, it can be very hard to navigate. Again, I would almost suggest bringing in a third party, which, people are not always open to. The other thing that you can do if you're someone who's facilitating the conversation or you're starting the conversation is attending to the good things, the things that would be opposite of triggering. So, you could, we call it like priming the positive. So before you get into the heavier subjects, really tending to the relationship that you have, the good aspects of having them as your roommate. And also knowing that their response is not your responsibility. So however they're responding, especially if you're needing to put a boundary up. So my friend who is immunocompromised, she had to put a super big boundary up with her friend who was not adhering to physical distancing. And, everyone's approaching this differently, but because she's immunocompromised, is taking the physical distancing very seriously and needs it to be important. And unfortunately, she had to let go of that friendship because his response to that is not her responsibility. So if you're stating a boundary, so I don't really know what the conversation is exactly about, so it's hard to say exactly what to do. But if you're stating a boundary and you're coming from a place of being really calm and centered, and this is what I need, their response to that is not your responsibility, and it's uncomfortable. It's hard to deal with people reacting in their stress response. So basically, when we have a conversation around something that's hard, we're bringing all of what we have been through to that conversation. So everything that has caused them to feel triggered or trauma or whatever, and their inability to be regulated, which again, in our culture, I've met very few people who are regulated all the time. Even my mentors have moments where they aren't regulated. So they're bringing all of that, and you, by saying something that is triggering, you're triggering all of it. So, I mean, that's a huge thing to try and even hold space for, and or even try to navigate or try and have a conversation where you're not triggering all that. Because anything that they haven't resolved in their nervous system or in their body is always present in what they're doing. And same for you. So the best thing that you can do that I've done in a lot in my groups when working with people with trauma is priming the positive first, and having an anchor to come back to. So if they're important relationships for you, always coming back to, I want to be in relationship with you. I love living with you. I really need to address these things because they're important to me. How can we work through this? How can we move through this and still have a really positive, firm foundation in our relationship together? So always coming back to that will be helpful.
That's awesome. I think that's perfect. That's great advice.
Okay. Okay. Is it normal for the body to have a physical response to stress, such as hives, cold sores? I didn't think I was stressed until I woke up covered in hives. Yes. So that's, again, what I was talking about is when we are feeling stressed. And right now, I just want to reiterate, we have to be so gentle with ourselves right now. In times where we're under constant stress and trauma, especially things that we are in no control of at all. There's nothing we can do about this virus. It's just there. We can keep ourselves safe. We can do all these things, but we can't tap our magic wand and make it go away. So our body needs to have time to be in deactivation and parasympathetic place, because parasympathetic place is where we heal and where we rest and digest. It's also where we can engage socially, which comes back to that co-regulation piece. It is so common, very common, for people to get sick, have hives. Hives are like a inflammatory response in the body, which also, all the stress hormones create inflammation. So I wouldn't be surprised if lots of us are having more digestive issues, or like you said, have cold sores, or the hives thing. It's definitely okay, and to be okay with our body having those responses right now, and just giving yourself, knowing that that is a invitation, or it's basically like your body saying, hey, and your nervous system saying, hey, I need a little bit more attention here. So I need a little bit more time off social media. I need a little bit more time in a bathtub. I need a little bit more time maybe crying or feeling our emotions, and allowing those to move through us, because they are just there as an experience. And just knowing that because we're in a place where we're under constant stress right now, is those things are going to happen for us. Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Having anxiety when I go to bed because I'm not sleeping well. Maybe meditate or grounding before bed. Okay, yeah. So I can speak from personal experience around this. I've had sleeping issues my whole life. They're a lot better now, but I can give you some little tips for before bed, which everyone could be doing right now, because of the stress that we're under. And because when we sleep, if we can be in a more parasympathetic place, we're going to feel a lot more regulated. Our bodies are going to be able to heal. Our immune systems are going to be a lot more supported. So definitely no screen time, an hour to 2 hours, I would even say, especially right now before bed. I have a little alarm on my phone that says time to turn off. And then I have an alarm that says time to go to bed. So no screen time, especially absorbing any of the media right now. And then do your nervous system hygiene stuff. So the orienting, the resourcing. Another great exercise is to journal. Journal out anything, any of your thoughts, just sort of stream of consciousness thoughts, like journal it all out, and let yourself know that, like, okay, if this is really important, I can come back to this tomorrow because I've written it down. And baths are a great way to get the body to start to go into that parasympathetic place, because there's that change in temperature where your body will be a little bit cold before you get in the bath. It heats up, and then the temperature drops again once you get out of your bath. That's actually really good for the nervous system. There's a whole bunch, I don't know if you guys have heard of Wim Hof, but there's a whole bunch of studying going on about cold water therapy for the nervous system. And we don't want to do cold shocks at night, but a hot bath is great. And then reading can be a great resource, especially if you're reading something that's really soothing and inspirational. I picked up a book last night, and it was about the AIDS pandemic in Africa. And I was reading it before bed, and I was like, this is not a book that I need to be reading right now. So I put it aside, and I just picked up a book of my, one of my teachers, my equine therapy teachers, her books that has a bunch of pictures of her horses. And I just looked at the pictures of the horses. So again, that resourcing piece, body oiling before bed, especially on your feet and your ears. And if you don't have a herbal body oil, you can just use coconut oil or sesame. Sesame oil is really great for people who are feeling more anxiety and flighty. Coconut oil is great for people who are feeling more fight, more aggression, and olive oil is good for people who are in the freeze response. And those are things that you might have in your kitchen. If you are into herbalism, St. John's wort oil right now is really, really, really healing and helpful. St. John's wort is all about healing trauma. So, and then doing some nice deep breaths, some grounding breaths, lying on your belly and pretending you're lying on the earth. I'm just going to leave it there because I could actually go on a lot longer about all those things, but those are just a few things that you could do. But definitely 2 hours before you're going to bed, make that, or even an hour if you can, make that sort of your bedtime deactivation. Time to wind down. And also, if you're having trouble sleeping, it's not as important to be asleep as it is to rest. So if you can't sleep, just being in your bed, and don't try and force yourself to sleep, but just rest. So doing some breathing, maybe putting on a visualization meditation or yoga nidra meditation, or something that can help your body stay in that deactivated place. If you didn't have a bath before bed, you could always get up and go have a bath, and just really keep tending to your nervous system and your body in that way. Can St. John's wort oil be used with birth control? I know it can be made ineffective. Or orally. Yes. I think from what I've read is topically it's okay. Taking it internally as a tincture or as in like a pill form can be contraindicated. But from my herbal mentors, I've asked, especially if you're just oiling your feet or your ears, it should be okay. But again, if you're concerned about that, there's other things that you can use. Any other? We're just doing an hour, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're coming up on the hour. So I want to finish with another exercise. And if you have more questions, you can send them to Leah Rose or type them in the Facebook group or whatever, and we will get them to me, and then I can answer them as best as I can. And if you need more resources, I have lots of those. So yeah, just send your questions along. We can definitely get them answered.
Definitely. And maybe I can have Kelsey come on maybe next Tuesday if she says yes to me.
I say yes right now. I can definitely do that.
Okay, great. So next Tuesday at 2 a.m., 10 a.m. We're going to have Kelsey on again. And then before we do this last exercise, I just want to say thank you everyone for watching. You are watching the Global Turn On Salon. This is a series of wellness events that are happening like pretty much until this is over. And make sure to check out our schedule and show up for stuff because we want you here. Thank you. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so it's really easy. I'm going to give you 3 options, and you're going to do them whatever is feeling best for you. So there's 3 different breaths here. One is for if you're feeling more anxiety and flighty, you're going to do a nice natural inhale of 4 and then an exhale of 6. If you are feeling more angry and frustration, you're going to do a ha breath. So you're just going to inhale and you're going to say ha. And if you're feeling freezy, like you're in freeze, you're going to breathe through your mouth. Oh, sorry, wait. The ha, I'm getting all my breaths confused. Sorry, if you're feeling angry, you're going to do a horse breath. Horse breath is like this. Okay. And if you're feeling freezy, you have 2 options. You have the ha breath, or you just have breathing in and out of your mouth with a little bit of a quicker pace. Okay, so flighty is inhale for 4, exhale for 6. And again, we're not trying to make our breath super deep or anything with any of these. It's more working with your natural breath. You're just going to extend your exhale. If you're feeling angry or really frustrated and a lot of that like super aggressive charge, you're going to do horse breath, which is inhaling and then breathing out through loose lips. And for freezy, you're going to do ha, or you're going to do just a little bit of a faster breath through your mouth. Okay, so we're all going to take 5 breaths together, and whatever one works for you. Okay, so, but before we start, we are going to take a nice deep breath together. A big inhale and exhale. And do the breath that works for you 5 times. And then after your 5th breath, just again, notice. Notice what's in your body, any sensations. Notice if there's any images coming to you, or emotion, or maybe your body feels like it wants to do something. And from this place, I'm going to invite you to just come up with one thing that you can go do immediately after this call, even if it's just for a second, that will support you to be in a more deactivated place. So continuing, and some options could be you go outside and take a breath of fresh air. You get your favorite cookie out of the cupboard. You lie down on the floor and do some more breathing, whatever it is. I invite you to do that. And one more just gentle reminder that right now, any sort of what I like to call healthy vices are really important. So it's okay if you're spending hours and hours on Netflix. It's okay if you're, indulging in a little bit more ice cream. It's okay if you're doing those things, as long as we're doing, again, as long as they're helping us feel good and feel like just taking care of ourselves and treating ourselves a little bit extra special right now. It's a really positive thing. So thank you for everyone's questions. They're really good questions. Thank you, Leah Rose, for putting this together and providing an opportunity to come together. It's so important. It's really special. Thanks for having me.